Welcome in. It's almost time.
All right, everybody, welcome into the Sports Hounds. It's Monday night. Newest member of the panel, former major leaguer, Doug Mientkiewicz. We're going to be talking baseball. We talk a little basketball. Doug's resume, if you don't know, he's a Gold Glover. He's a World Series champion. He's a high school coach. You're also now coaching the 18U national team, I understand.
Correct.
And just a great sportsman. Going to give us some great insights. We certainly welcome him to the panel. We're live on Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, and Instagram. If you missed anything here on A2D Radio or the Sports Hounds, download us wherever you get your podcasts, Spreaker, Spotify, Google Play, iHeartRadio, and iTunes. Our topics for tonight, we're going to talk some Phillies, we're going to talk some National League, American League, and then each week with Doug, we're going to do a wild card round, just like the MLB playoffs, because Doug is a sportsman, as are we. So tonight's going to be basketball. Doug's got a lot of exciting stuff going on. He's a Heat fan. He likes Eric Spoelstra, which works because me and Brad both hate the Celtics. You have LeBron on the brink of elimination out west, down 3-0.
Isn't that
Beautiful.
a shame?
Brad,
That's so sad.
no, you're not a LeBron guy, Doug?
No, not even close. No, wasn't really a LeBron guy when he was here.
But they are down 3-0. Both teams are down 3-0. You obviously were on the 2004 Red Sox.
Mm-hmm.
You guys were down 3-0. Like, what's the mentality going into just one game at a time, one play at a time?
Just play it. Just play it once. Play it. You play one game at a time. And if you look at it as you got to win 4, it's kind of insurmountable. But if you just break it down and think, Terry Francona's line was just win today, and it was simplicity. And I think sometimes you get ahead of yourself in a 7-game series. You're like, well, wait a minute. And I just think it's more makeup than anything else. I mean, we felt like we can win one game a day. It's not, if you break it down that simply, it's really not that hard. If you just, I'm going to try to win today and then worry about tomorrow. And I think that's obviously you have to have depth, and that helps. But, it's funny how it's never happened in basketball. I think, too many times it's happened because of, one team is completely overmatched from another. And it's just, you expect LeBron to take over at some point. And obviously he's done it for 20 years. And I'm not a fan, but I also respect the fact of what he's accomplished. But at the same token, it's like, if you get swept, it couldn't happen to a better guy. And I know, like, the NBA can't be more unhappy with what's going on right now to have a Denver-Miami final than they were banking on the LA-Boston final. And you know what? Coach Spo had something to say about it.
Yeah, and Jokic is just unbelievable out there.
Unstoppable. Yeah, he's unstoppable.
Unbelievable.
Playing with a little chip on his shoulder too now.
Yeah, it's that's the kind of thing I like about it. That's that's kind of why, not to get long and involved, we'll talk about it later, but that's why I'm a Heat fan, because like those guys are, they're undrafted, they're making names for themselves, and they're hungry. And the business side hasn't kicked into them yet. They haven't have enough time in the NBA to get their big contract, but they know their money's coming, and they just get guys to buy into, one more pass or, draw a charge. Just, they do team type stuff that's so overlooked in today's sports.
Yeah, I'm surprised that Hero didn't hurt them more.
I thought they were done, because he was the only guy we really had besides Jimmy Butler, in my opinion, that could create off the dribble. And yet we just keep finding ways, and I don't know why they just keep leaving Jimmy Butler one-on-one. It's like, how many more guys does he have to toast before you realize you might want to put somebody else on him? But when the other guys are making shots, it makes it impossible to guard somebody, to double team somebody.
And it's so great too, because like, he's on fire and he knows it at this point. He's taunting everyone. He's talking trash. He's being.
It's
Jimmy
a quiet
Butler.
Trash, though. It's not like today's look at me. He's like, he just does it subtly, and he loves to compete, and you see it. And it's just, he has every right to be as brash as possible, but he does it subtly. And every interview, it's like, what blows me away is the fact that he's played almost every minute of every game, and they interview him immediately after the game, and he's like barely out of breath. He's like, well, "Are you surprised?" Like, "No, we're really good. We have really good players." And I'm like, that's awesome. Like, when your superstar does dirty work, and creates for other people, it's fun to watch, and I hope the ride lasts for at least another. I hope they finish this thing.
Hey, Mike, the way they play defense, they're really tough to play against.
They're unselfish. I mean, they do the dirty work. They draw charges. They rebound. They all crash the boards. They get back. They hustle back on defense. All the things you preach from when they were 6 years old, they do at a professional level. In today's game, we don't see that. And to see it survive and to see it come from a young coach like Spo and watch him do it from day one. And I admit, when they brought the big three to Miami and they had Pat Riley brought Spo in to be the guy, you're like, oh, I don't know how that's going to work with three, Hall of Fame players. But man, they buy in, and when he speaks, they listen and they believe in it. And he is in control of everything, and it's just a beautiful thing to watch.
All right, each and every week here on the Sports Hounds, we're brought to you by Bogier's Breads, located in Mount Laurel, New Jersey, home of the best stuffed breads, tomato pie, sandwiches, cutlets, meatballs, and more. Mention A2D Radio for 10% off. We're also brought to you by Creative Window Design, serving New York, Pennsylvania, New Jersey, and Florida. We are a fully authorized Hunter Douglas dealer. Contact Jeff, 609-226-0391 for a free consultation. Getting into baseball. Now, we were talking about a little bit before the show. We're getting to Memorial Day. It's about to be June. Phillies, some of these other high-profile teams aren't seeing the results that they would expected in spring training from a win-loss perspective. You have teams like the Pirates and the Diamondbacks that are kind of new kids on the block that are playing well. Doug, when is it time to be either, okay, we need to start going, or we're still got time to get it going? How long does it take a team to, I guess, hit their stride?
Every team's different. Every team's different. Every situation is different. I've been on teams that in 2003 with Minnesota, we didn't get it going for 5.5 months. And, you're a product of your division, right? If your division's, eating each other up and no one's running away with it, well, people like in 2003, we came off 0-1 where we had a great season and faded at the end because we were young and we didn't know how to win the whole season yet. And the Indians were experienced and they took us in September, to 2002 where we just cleaned house and won the division by, I think, 16 games. And then the following year we felt like it was, we have time and we just couldn't get it going. And we were 8 games back of the All-Star break and everybody's freaking out. And the players were like, look, we've got time. Well, the division left us hanging around. And by September, we hit our stride and we rolled into the playoffs. And it's a matter of, and I look at the Phillies, right? Like, we're coming off the World Series. That's when you first time you go through it as a team, it's a long season, and you took a month. Not only were you playing important games that extra month, you take a month, almost 2 months off your recovery, and you go from playing the most amazing games in hostile environments, big crowds, every pitch matters, to spring training and then April, and you're like, this is really boring, and you have to find a way to lock it back in. So, and they have some veteran guys. I thought the Trey Turner addition was absolutely huge. But you have your pitching. I mean, I look back at the 2000, I think the White Sox won it in 2005, and they had 5.
We lose Doug? We lost Doug. We'll get him back.
There we go. We had 5 starters in the White Sox. They went 200+ innings, and then the next year they weren't very good. Their stuff struggled because that's a lot of extra innings on those guys' arms. So a lot of it plays into it, but they're veteran laden. They're getting Harper back. You have Schwarber, and Nick Castellanos is going to. I said it last year on the show that Nick's going to have a hell of a season this year, coming off of what he did last year, and he's rolling right now. You just need your offense to pick you up, and let's be honest, like, the Marlins aren't going to last. The Mets are still the Mets. They have their horses, but yet you still don't know what they're going to do. And I think Philly's not in a great spot, but they're leaving them hanging around, which is what all they can ask for. And Robbie Thompson's as good as it gets as a baseball guy. He'll have those guys ready at the right time, and they'll hit their stride soon. A lot of it goes into, too, is scheduling, right? When do you play who?
They got the Braves coming up on Thursday for 4.
Ooh, that could be rough.
It could be, but I mean, they got to start winning these games. I mean, look,
the problem, and I think we've discussed this before. Something's up with their pitching this year. I mean, and Doug is right. Maybe that extra extra month of playing, these pitchers just don't seem like they're the same this year.
It might look the same to the naked eye, but it's more, they might lack a little bit of extra gear it had before. So they're trying to figure out ways to, they'll figure it out. I said, you're a product of your division. That division has always been, they tear each other up, and like they eat each other up, and they all of a sudden, it doesn't take much to get in. All you got to do is get in. You saw it last year. They got in, and look what happened. So I think they're right where maybe not right where they want to be, but as far as they're still well within striking distance. You have a good 10-day span, and you're right where you want to be.
That's our poll question tonight. Poll question brought to you, Alan Foy, eXp Realty. Looking for a change in brokerage, changing career brokerage, contact our friend Alan Foy at eXp Realty. There it is right there, 609-226. Nope, this one. 302-682-8820. Poll question of the night is the Phillies will still make the playoffs. As a fan, I'm still very confident in this team because I look at this and it hasn't been a disaster for the Phillies, even though it's not where the rabid Philly fans want it to be. It's like they started off, they were hot at the plate and they were hitting, but they weren't pitching. Then they started pitching, then they went cold. Then they're pitching and hitting, and then all of a sudden they're making errors in the field. I don't know how closely you've been following the Phillies base running, but I don't know if this is a league-wide thing or a Philadelphia thing, but it's not been good at all.
It's atrocious throughout from 8U baseball through the big leagues. It's an abomination. But again, you also have to think too. They changed some rules, right? They changed some rules in the game, and everybody's trying to feel this thing out, right? I mean, they didn't build their team to run to steal bases. They didn't build their team yes, Trey can run, but like I said, this whole bigger bag, not throwing over, all this stuff it changed the game a little bit to where you're still trying to figure out how we fit. And every fan wants their team to be in first place from day one to the last day of the season. I get it. But there's no one in that clubhouse that can handle it better than Robbie. And he's going to figure, they're right where they want to be in the sense of, they're getting guys back. They haven't had a significant injury yet, which everybody has at some point, but they have enough depth offensively to where their offense can carry them for a certain amount of time. And I think their pitching, once they get, they get a couple guys going that maybe they're not expecting, because every team has a couple that they find throughout the year that get it going for that year. Once that happens, but they have enough veterans in that clubhouse. Schwarber, I love to death because I just love his demeanor. I love what he brings to a club. There's a snarl to him. They have a great staff. They have a bunch of really good players with gamer kind of type physical aspects, or their mentality is perfect. And I think it takes a special person to play in Philly. There's no two ways about it. That's, to me, it's harder to play in Philly. It would be harder to play. I didn't play there, but I felt like it was harder to play there at any time as a visitor than any time in New York and any time in Boston. So that being said, I think they have the right mix of guys. Those guys can handle it, and I think they have a kind of a mix between some veteran guys and some young guys. And I think at the end of the day, they know that they all want that taste. Once you taste the World Series and once you taste postseason, you want that taste again. And that team is figuring out a way to build up towards the right time. And don't forget, last year they didn't exactly tear the world up the whole year either. So I think once you do it once and you almost push the envelope, it's that iron's hot as a kid and you want to put your finger on it. You don't want to get burned. You kind of just wait and get closer. You kind of want to push the envelope. We're fine. And once they kick it in, and they'll be fine.
So I thought they were going to really go on a tear. It was mid-May. They won 5 in a row. Then they went out to LA and got smoked. And then they lost 2 out of 3 at home to Boston. Then they've just kind of been sitting at 500. But like I said, Trey Turner's sitting at a 300 on base percentage right now. This guy's been 350, 360, 370 his whole career. So the back of the baseball card, and then you called it with Nick Castellanos. Nick Castellanos has been absolutely excellent. And then how Bryce Harper is doing what he's doing, just 5 months removed from Tommy John surgery, is unbelievable. You mentioned
He's a freak.
You mentioned Schwarber. Bowman Stott started really hot. I think Bohm's a little more consistent than Stott, but I think that Stott's gritty. Scott really, he does those little things that you need to win, at least in my opinion.
You have to have superstars and you have to have wedge breakers. You have to have superstars and you have to have wedge breakers. You got to have guys that are willing on the kickoff team to go knock the wedge up, right? And that's what those guys do, and they do those things. And I think, like I said, like they damn near should have won it last year. So I think they're fine. They have everything you kind of need. I think everybody wants more pitching, obviously, but with the deadline and all that stuff, or the trade stuff, like they'll make the right moves, and like they know what they lack, and that's it's like a heavyweight fight, the baseball season. You kind of feel each other out, where you lack, what do you need. All of a sudden, boom, you make it move, and here we go. So, like I said, Nick's going to have a hell of a year. It's going to get hotter. It's going to get warmer. The ball's going to fly even more. Those guys are, like I said, it's a tough lineup to navigate. I mean, you're talking Schwarber and Trey Turner, and the list goes on. They just keep coming at you, and they keep having good at bats, and they'll catch fire here. And I said, baseball's not about who you play; it's about who you play when. And that's, you can run into LA or, for example, a tough team, and they might be struggling too. So it's a matter of when you run into the big guys. That if they're playing well, it doesn't matter if their front of their jersey says Boston or if it says Pittsburgh. When they're hot, it's just a matter of when you play teams at the right time. And if you get hot, you run into a schedule part where teams are struggling, and you run off 7, 8 in a row, and here you go.
And then I mentioned their base running before. I've never seen a team make the first or last out at third as much as the Philadelphia Phillies do.
The Yankees.
I mean, I don't want to. Do they really?
Oh yeah.
So it's not just the Phillies.
You have to watch Gleyber Torres. You won't watch Gleyber Torres all the time. He's such a talented player, but I don't know. Maybe it's just playing second base. He's got the Robbie Cano disease. It just like his mind seems to wander when he's on the bases, and you sit there and you're like, what are you doing? What are you doing? Why are you trying to steal third with 2 outs? Stuff like that. It's like, what are you doing? Why? I think
it's more of like you have to play the ballpark too. I think the old baseball rules are don't make the third out at third. Well, you play in Fenway Park. You better challenge yourself to get to third base, because a base hit to left that's from second doesn't guarantee you're going to score. So, and Philly is not exactly a big ballpark. So, I mean, I get it. Trust me, I watch it. I coach it. It drives me nuts to watch guys just continually not understand the simplicity of what base running is and how much it can affect a game. And to make stupid outs, to me, it's more of like now power's obviously all over the place. So why would you want to make outs in the bases? But at the same token, I'm not sticking up for him. But like I said, it's something that it is addressed every spring training. It is, and you expect guys to understand it. But at the same token, you see blunders every single night, and it's like, what in the world? And that's I coach now. I played. I've made base running mistakes as a player. And while I'm doing them, I don't know why I just did that, and it happens. But at the same token, I've coached and been like, we've gone over this 3 million times. Why in the world do you keep making the same mistake over and over again? So I get fans' frustration, because if you're coaching or if you're a player, you feel every bit of frustration also.
Yeah, it's very strange just watching some of these guys completely lose their minds on the bases. The Yankees, I thought that they were a smart team, but it just seems like Judge getting hurt. Why is he trying to steal third base? What in the world is he doing? He's if you want to steal second base every once in a while, okay, go for it. But what is he stealing? Why is he trying to steal third base, Doug? Well, I mean.
I can see why, because let's just go back to the Jimmy Butler effect. Well, he's the captain, right? He's a leader. If he's willing to steal third, what about the rest of us? And maybe he's trying to send a message to his team that, hey, we're doing an aggressive thing. And he's still, again, when you play, you think you're invincible. You think injuries don't pertain to me. I'm not going to get hurt. And when he does, it's like, okay. But then again, if Judge, say, hit a ground ball back to the mound in Yankee Stadium and he took 3 steps out of the box and jogged, they would, they'd let his car on fire. So it's like you can't have it. You can't have it either way.
That's
so you got to one or the other.
True.
You can't complain about him getting hurt and then because he's playing the game the way he wants to play and then be like, well, why isn't he running? So, and I don't think he's that type of guy. I think he's going to run everything out no matter how old he is or what his body feels like because that's just who he is.
He's never done. No, he's never done that before. He's
never.
not. He never jogs.
And that's
sometimes you wish he would kind of take it easy when you see it's going to be a single. Just get to first base, relax, don't hurt yourself.
Right. Let Rizzo hit one in the seats.
Like. Yeah. I mean, it's Stanton trying to stretch a single into a double. I know the ball was off the wall, but you're Stanton. You don't run fast, and he knows he doesn't run fast. What in the world was he thinking? And then he pulls a hamstring, and he's been out for like a month now.
You just don't understand. You have to weigh the positives and negatives. You mean more to us in the lineup at the plate than you stretching this single into a double. And that's
right.
I had that with Byron Buxton. I had Byron Buxton all the way through the minor leagues, and Byron would be flying around the park and running into fences and running into walls. I'm like, look, man, and he would yell at me when I'd sit him. I'd sit him because he's banged up, and I'm like, look, no one played more banged up than I did, and I understand that. I appreciate that. I said, Byron, when I'm managing you in the big leagues, you can go out there at 70%. I'm not letting you out there at 70% under my watch in the minor leagues. Sorry, I'm not doing it. I don't want to change who you are because that's not – you're going to keep running into walls and crashing into stuff and taking the extra base, which I love. But you're going to have to find a happy medium to understand that pick your spots, understand that you mean more to our club and the big league club by being on the field, not in the training room. And it's a tough thing with some guys. Some guys you can't push them hard enough to get them to run, and other guys will run through a burning building every play. And it's like you have to that's the yin versus the yang of how to know personalities and how to get them to do what you want them to do.
What do you think of all these new rules, Doug?
I can't stand them. It's like
you can't stand them.
We keep making an easy button. And it's like there's no easy button. Like why? Why do we have to keep changing the rules? And I get the pitch clock and all that stuff, but we're taking it to the extreme. I mean, a little bit that I've kind of followed it. It's like Bellinger goes back to L.A. Give him a minute to have the people cheer for him.
Right.
You can't have it both ways. You can't fix it. You can't have the argument when it only fits your narrative. You have to do it both ways, right?
Well, you can petition
it's all about
the league,
the fans, right? It's all about the fans, but yet when the fans give a standing ovation, you call a strike on him because he's not in the box. Like you got to have some feel, and I understand it puts everybody in a bad spot. Umpires don't want to do that. They don't want to be the guys that are harping on. Because they're the best of the best, and you saw what happened in spring training when Real Muto tried to get the ball and he pulled his hand away. They ejected him.
Thrown out.
Are you? That's what's the next wave for most guys because they're trying to make a name for themselves. It's like, so which one is it? But I get the understanding that we want to get more fans, but you're trying to get a generation that you can't keep their attention for 13 seconds, but you're trying to change the rules of a game that's been going on for 200 years. And there's a happy medium to where, you can do both without making the bag bigger and da-da-da-da. It's like, well, it goes back to without getting long and involved, but it's like, it's all about, and you can't blame the players. You can't blame the players. They're doing with the way the game has become boring. Well, the industry is telling them that they don't care if they strike out. They want to hit the ball over the fence. Well, okay, if you're going to pay me to hit the ball over the fence and you don't care if I strike out, why would I try to hit the ball on the other side of the field? I love the fact that you don't do the shift anymore. I get that part of it. But, if you would pay for high average, if you paid for guys that did the little things right, I've always said all the time, if you paid David Eckstein $28 million a year, you'd have a lot better baseball players and you have a lot better product. But everybody wants to see, guys that over the fence. I understand that. But at the same token, you can have both without changing rules every single year to where, we're making it almost like it's hard to follow for guys that have actually played it. And I always hear the argument, well, you couldn't play now. Pump the brakes. Guys that can play at the upper level, whether it's the NBA, the NHL, whatever it is, we're good enough to where we can do what the industry tells us to do. But when I was playing, it was
Doug, he'll be right back. Schwarber just went yard, 3-1.
Yeah, I saw.
the
Go ahead,
Diamondbacks
Doug.
game.
Yeah.
No, it's you can do you as if you're a professional athlete, you can adapt to the changes. That's why you're there. So to say that guys, the ball's juiced and all this other stuff, I get all that, but to me, it's the players aren't the ones to blame. If the industry wants to change things, they can change their pay scale to get a better product. It's hard to do it once. I understand that, and it's working. I get the games are faster, but you know what? It's like the same. Everybody wants a faster game, but they're bitching about the price of a game. Well, if I'm paying $150 to $500 for a game, I don't give a shit if it's 4 hours long. I get more for my money if the game's 3.5 hours long. I just enjoy certain things, and I get it that it's not. But at the same token, you're going to have some. It's not the game that everybody grew up on. I know that times have changed and all that stuff, but at the same token, baseball's been the same forever, and it's always survived, and it will through all of this.
So
my problem.
I'm sorry,
Go ahead,
Brent.
My problem is the throws to first base. I really hate that rule. I mean, I always loved the cat and mouse game with the pitcher and the base runner, and them only allowing 3 engagements. To me, I love it when the pitcher throws there and then you can boo him, and you have this whole game where the guy gets a little bigger lead and a little bigger lead. That's baseball. You're taking that out of the game,
right? And it's a lot of times they throw to first, not for the base runner. You're stalling for a minute to get somebody loose. You're trying to see if the team's bunting. You want to see what they're doing. You want to give yourself a break because you just give yourself a breather, kind of see what's going on to kind of adjust, move somebody, whatever it is. And it's like you're taking that away. Well, you're trying to the analytics. Everybody talks about analytics, but analytics took the stolen base out of the game. Well, now they're trying to bring it back in. So it's like, okay, so which one do you want? If I know you're not throwing over, no wonder stolen bases are up.
Right.
Yeah, second base is free.
Yeah. For a good runner, for a fast runner. Third base is still tricky.
Correct, because you're not going to throw 3 times a second.
Yeah, and also, second base, stealing third base is always, nobody really throws that often to second base. That's not, it's more or less it's the games that the second baseman plays or the shortstop plays to try to psych out the guy at second base. I mean, Ricky Henderson would have stolen 1,500 bases if
100%.
Yeah, he would have stolen 100 bases every year if he played with these rules.
And so you eliminate the shift, you actually have positions again. The shift cured a lot of base running, trying to steal third with the shift on. Well, the shortstop's right there, so you can't really venture off too much. Well, now you got to be certain. It's adding more baseball aspects back to it without the shift, to where you have to jockey a runner and move around, and you might break off second, move the shortstop 1 step, and the guy hits a ground ball 1 step away from where he was, and now you have a single instead of a double play. So a lot of stuff goes into that stuff. I'm curious to see how it pans out in games that really, as the season goes on, and see the biggest difference, because everything takes time. But it's intriguing. But at the same token, for me now, I just turn on a college game because it's just, to me, it's more exciting.
So Schwarber, he just hit a home run. 3-2.
It's 3-2 now.
3-2. They went back to back. Schwarber, he's been kind of scuffling. When you're a player and you're struggling, is it like instant? Like, okay, now I'm seeing it. Now I'm hot. Or does it take time?
It can be one swing.
It can be one swing.
Jason Giambi always said, you're one swing away from feeling sexy again. And that was his motto. It's like, no matter how bad he was going or how good he was going, it's like you're only one swing away. And it's amazing how once you're one swing away from being really good again. And that's kind of what that's the nature of baseball. What makes it the same thing that makes it hard makes it great, because you can be god awful and all of a sudden one next pitch everything slows down and you're like, okay, now I'm rolling again. So he's too good a hitter to not. He's going to hit homers because he's got tremendous pop, but I almost expected him to have he should have a higher average than he does, in my opinion, because he's going to hit home runs just from hitting line drives. And he was, and I say, managing through the minor league system, he was, if not the toughest out I had to pitch to the whole way up every year. Was, if he wasn't, he was 1A if I'm missing somebody. But he was always must see TV as an opposing manager when he was coming up, to be like, just to watch him approaching at bat was always. I hated it as a manager, but like as a baseball fan, I was like, this kid can flat out. He commanded home plate when he went to the plate. You knew when he was coming up.
What about a bunt? Does a bunt kind of can a bunt ignite a player? Like Mickey Mantle used to do the drag bunt whenever he was in a streak where he was striking out a lot. He would drag bunt because he knew he could get a hit almost every time he did it.
Mm-hmm.
Even when his knees were shot and he could barely run, he would be able to drag bunt. I mean, just something like that. Is it a spark thing? Is it a mental thing? I mean, what do you think causes these guys to go from terribly cold to all of a sudden they're on fire?
Well,
Judge was terrible before he got hurt.
The bunt thing is a good analogy, because I tell our guys, just show bunt. Because what happens is every time you tell a player to show show bunt in a game, it puts their eyes closer to the ball, and all of a sudden they say, like, the first thing they come back and say, like, I could have killed that pitch. I'm like, yeah, I know, because you got your face on it and you slowed it down. Whether you bunted or not, you got your eyes closer to the ball and you slowed it down. Even if you pull a bat back, I would do it all the time when I couldn't run a lick, because I didn't want guys shifting on me. I didn't want to leave I called my 5-6 hole while I was a left-handed hitter. The ball between the shortstop and the third baseman was like my security blanket. I didn't want you taking that away. So I would bunt even on turf early in my career a lot, just to kind of like I didn't want that third baseman playing way over in the hole. And every time, like you said, a lot of times I'd lay a bunt down, whether it was fair or foul, it slowed the pitch down, because it's amazing how, when I always talk about the game speeds up. Well, sometimes the pitchers look like they're throwing Tic Tacs, and it's like you just can't stop it. And it's a hard, but all it takes is one pitch to get your face on it, going, okay, he's back to 60 feet 6 inches. He's not throwing it from 11 feet like it feels like it, and you're not having to make up your mind at a split second. And it's amazing how quickly it happens. But right, that's something that I wish more guys would do, and it's a pride thing. And again, it goes back to the industry. They don't pay for average, and they don't pay for, whatever it is. But like Rod Carew went 4 for 4 one night with four bunt base hits, and he's in the Hall of Fame. So I think it works for some people.
Rod Carew would also steal second, third, and home too.
Correct.
So,
absolutely.
A bunt could be a home run with that guy, because there was no stopping him when he was younger and he was with the Twins. There was no stopping him on the bases. When he wanted to steal, you weren't going to stop him.
Correct.
And if he bunted, he was going to get on base, even if it was a bad bunt, because he was so fast that it didn't matter. That's
very true. There's a lot of players like that. I mean, because you have power doesn't mean you just forget about your speed. And that's
he could have hit. We all know he could have hit 25, 30 home runs a season if that's what he wanted to do.
Without question.
He wanted to win batting titles. That was his thing, and I didn't see a lot of Gwynn because I'm an American League fan, but Rod Carew is still the best hitter I've ever seen, bar none.
It was his barrel awareness, even at 60, 65 when I was in spring training with Minnesota, was just like, that's 55 or 60, whatever he was. It was like you could flat out still hit. Like you're just like, you can find the barrel in your sleep. And he's like, yep. I'm like, that's why you're the best I've ever seen. He was one of the best guys I ever worked with.
I can remember one time against the Yankees, he bunted. I think Fritz Peterson was pitching, and he was a pretty good fielder too. But as a kid, I just remember he bunted one right back to the mound, and like Fritz Peterson didn't run real hard off the mound to get the ball, and by the time Fritz Peterson threw the ball, he was already standing on first base, literally.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, and I remember Phil Rizzuto, who used to be their announcer, like, holy cow, He could hit 500 if he did that every time.
Mm-hmm. The art of the game is putting pressure on people.
Yep. I mean,
wow, Doug sounds like me. The whole point of sports: put pressure on your opponent. That's why this stupid analytics stuff doesn't work.
There's a crazy stat.
Yeah, running upsets the game.
There's a crazy stat that I'm not 100% accurate on, but I know that I preach it to the teams I coach. That, like, I want to say that 80% of major league errors are around the mound. Like 80% of the errors made at the big league level are around the pitcher's mound, whether it's a bunt, a slow roller, throws, whatever it is. And Tom Kelly used to preach that to us, and we always had important. And he was a stickler to how he wanted things done, and it made sense. And if you, especially at the high school level, if you watch how many, the bunt is like the number one. Even in high A ball, when I managed, our best offensive weapon a lot of nights was just a sacrifice bunt, and we were forced to do it as an organization, and that was beautiful because it teaches them the game. It's not so much the bunt that you can see that you can execute. It's also teaching them the game and understanding that you put pressure on people, usually good things happen. If you make them make plays enough times and they don't make one, you have a crooked number on the board. Next thing you know, you look up at the win column, you're ahead of the other team. So, that's what I'm hoping that someday. Like, it's funny when you watch. It's funny to me, like, you watch these managers and organizations now, and they play games from April through September, and then as soon as the game matters in October, they're asking a guy to bunt that hasn't bunted since 2013, and they wonder why they can't execute it. Well, there's going to be a point in time where you really wish you had executed that. I always say this: the game always finds your weakest point at the most important time of a season. Mm-hmm. And if you can do it and execute it, you're usually the one that comes out on top. You might lose, but you don't beat yourself. And I think that's something that's why managers don't sleep a lot at night, when they know that they don't have a team that's multi-talented to where they can beat you in different ways.
You were talking about Minnesota. You guys, it was an organizational, I guess, rule or way to play the game, bunting and little things like that.
Correct.
Obviously, talk about that between the different teams that you were on. Obviously, Boston, that wasn't really a small ball team with Big Papi and Ortiz. And I know you were on the Yankees and the Pirates, and you spent little time in Kansas City as well, who kind of played like the Twins of the early 2000s.
It's funny how you bounce around and you see, like, the Twins. It was spring training was not fun. It was borderline miserable. The work we would put in, Good Morning America was an infield drill that we did 2.5 hours a day, and then we take ground balls. Then we took infield before the game, and Tom Kelly screaming at the pitchers, "This is why you had to throw it over the plate." And they would make them watch us do this drill for hours on end. And then you go to the Yankees, and it's like we just took batting practice. And that's understandably so when you have A-Rod at third, and Jeter at short, and Cano at second, and the list goes on and on. Those guys know how to get themselves ready to play. And I remember grabbing Larry Bow on a backfield, because I'm like, there's things I haven't done in spring training yet that I need to check off my list to be prepared for during a season. He's like, well, like what? And I'm like, well, throwing home. Infield in, for me to throw home, I needed to work on it a lot to make sure that when it came to the time to do it in the game, I saw myself do it. And thank God Larry was always out there with me. But like this simple stuff like that we would always do in Minnesota, we never did anywhere else. I never had anywhere close. I will say Pittsburgh we did, because John Russell came over he was with me in the Twins system as a minor league manager, and he was my big league manager, and we did some similar stuff. It wasn't to the extreme, but it was very similar. So that was the only place I ever went to that I was like, okay, like this is, and again, it's a matter of it's a product of what you have. And, if you have guys that are ready to get themselves, established guys that get themselves ready to play, you don't need to do that stuff. But if you have a young team like we had in Minnesota coming up, it was mandatory that you know how to handle every situation that could possibly be thrown at you. And we worked on it every single day.
Let's get to some comments here. We're for the fan, by the fan here at A2D Radio. We do it for you. Rosca's in the house. Brian Daly's in the house. He thinks, I think May is a little little early to be worrying about the playoffs. It's a marathon season. It's not a sprint. Just winning in May, absolutely, but the season doesn't really start until July. I mean, the Braves are really good, but the Phillies didn't beat the Braves last year until the playoffs. So I just want to see them get in. Because I think last year, I mean, you got in, you got hot, you caught the Braves sleeping a little bit. You beat them in 5, then you beat Harper hits the home run, and then you go to the World Series. And Houston was just too good last year. They just you can't do bullpen games against Houston and against that lineup and expect a win. Now, they were supposed to address that from the Philly standpoint. Taijuan Walker got paid a lot of money to come in here. He's been walking too many guys, and maybe Dave Dombrowski has to pull a rabbit out of the hat at the deadline and get another starting pitcher, which I fully believe that Dave Dombrowski will do. So, in regards to the poll, I'm still very bullish on the Phillies. I think they're a really good team. I think they haven't put together all the skills at once, and I think it's coming. It has to be coming.
You still look at it. You still look at, like, you always, I think sometimes it's harder to get in because you look at how they're built, and it's like, well, that's like, the Mets. They're scary just because you run into a 5-game series and you got to go through those two boys, like,
especially in a 5-game series. I mean, we played.
Yeah, you play them 4 out of 5 games. I mean, they're going to pitch. They could pitch 4 out of 5 games.
I mean, St. Louis had no shot against the Phillies in the playoffs last year when they had Nola was pitching well and Wheeler was pitching well, and
no, they didn't.
That was that in a 5-game series when you have pitchers like that. I mean, Doug knows. I mean,
that's exactly right. That's why they did it. I mean, like, the Phillies are scary because if they get in, you never know, because like you have 2 horses that can match up with anybody else's 1 and 2, and it's not just one; it takes 2. And you talking 5-game series, you're getting them 4 times, and you go to a 7-game series, you might get them 5, 6 times. So it's like and they have enough depth offensively to where everybody can hurt you at some point. And I think that's the Trey Turner makes him one more guy deeper than they were last year. And the young guys, like we talked about earlier, they got another year under their belt. They're starting to puff their chest out. They had some key moments in October last year, and they want to build on those too. So, like I said, that's it's going to be tricky down the stretch. But, like, to me, like, there's no panic in those guys. And they, from last year, and I said Topper at the helm, just he breeds confidence, and it's just those guys. It's amazing how when they made him the head guy, that whole club changed immediately, and that doesn't happen often, and it did. And it's he has a way of pulling the right strings, and those guys have a belief in May. It doesn't matter. Yeah, you can't win a pennant in May. You can lose one, but you can't win it in May. And I said, like, when that snowball gets going in the right direction, they're going to be fine. And everybody in that division is going to get hot at some point, right? Atlanta has enough sustainability with young pitching in their lineup. The Mets can get going too, but it's just a matter of surviving it and leaving yourself enough time to make your move when the time is right.
Look at Tampa Bay, Doug. They won 13 in a row. Okay. They look up in the standings now, and the Orioles are only 3 games behind. The Yankees are 5.5 behind. And you're 20 games over 500 before Memorial Day, but you haven't broken anything open. You've got a bunch of teams that you have to worry about. Even Boston's playing well. I don't know what's going on in Toronto. They're getting slaughtered again tonight by Tampa Bay, but it kind of, I guess it kind of depends on your division too.
For sure.
And I think in the National League, for the most part, the only thing I'd be worried about with the Phillies is, Arizona is a significantly better team this year than they were last year. And are they going to end up with a better record over the course of the whole season than the Phillies? And I guess the other team they should worry about is the Padres. But the Padres seem to have the same problem the Phillies do, and that's, their pitching's been kind of questionable. What about those 2 teams?
I think Arizona reminds me of a lot of us in the Twins, in 2001. Young team. Like I said, that extra month for those guys when they realize they're winning for the first time, and then all of a sudden they got to hold guys off. I'm going to keep an eye on them in late July, early August, and see what happens. The Rays, I don't see they. Don't get me wrong. You have to win games you're supposed to win. I get that, but that 13-game run they went on.
Yeah,
and they played the Pirates. They played the teams they played were they're supposed to beat. And like you said,
agreed.
Perfectly. What you said is, you have all this. I go back to 2002 when the A's won 20 whatever it was, 1 games in a row, 21 or 22 games in a row in 2002, and all they talked about was Oakland. But yet, you looked at the Angels, only lost 3 games in that. They went 18-3 or whatever it was during that span, and no one talked about them. And then the Angels ended up winning the World Series. So it's a tricky thing. I think young teams don't realize how long the season is when you're winning. That's something to keep your eye on. But to me, the Rays, maybe I'm not a fan of them. I just don't like the way they do things. I never have. But they're going to hold off 4 teams in the division that are coming, and they know they're coming.
Well, it's also interesting this year because the American League East, you don't have to play your division 19 times. It's a much more balanced schedule. So that's going to benefit the East and a team like the Orioles a lot, because back in 04 and 03, you were, the White Sox, I'm trying to remember back. The White Sox were pretty good when you were on the Twins, I'm saying. The White Sox, they were pretty solid. The Indians, now Guardians, they were always pretty solid. You play those teams 19 times. Those are tough outs. And then you go to Boston. And were you on Boston in 05 after the World Series?
04. No, I was the Mets in 05.
You got traded there in 04, then we're done after you guys won.
I had a really good 4 months.
Yeah. I'm sure you're very popular in Boston to this day. You probably don't buy a drink there, but I don't even remember what I was saying.
No, I get what you're saying. The balanced schedule made it tough because like I said, you're rolling into, if you're not on the Red Sox or the Yankees in the AL East, you're running into one of them 19 times, if not both of them. So, that's a tough get. I don't care how good or bad the Yankees or the Red Sox are. They're generally better than the rest of the division, and you beat each other up. So that the unbalanced schedule now kind of negates that. So you don't really.
We'll get back to the comments as Doug loads back in. Umpires have way too much power now. I completely agree. We just got back to the comments. Umpires have way too much power. I think there should be a robot system, computer system, at least for balls and strikes. You can still have the human behind the plate to call the force outs and the tag plays, and the umps can do the bases. But is it time to have a automated ball and strike system, or are you old school? Because I was old school with the DH for a while, and now I love it.
But okay, you have a robot for an umpire, then you're going to lose. The whole catching position completely changes.
Right.
You can put an infielder or an outfielder back there. It doesn't matter how they catch it. It doesn't matter what they do. You don't really have to worry about receiving anymore because it's an automated. It's a robot doing it. I'm just, that's part of the game that I think I just, as much as I loved some and maybe didn't agree with some other ones, it's just part. Again, this sport's about relationships, isn't it? It's about entertainment and relationships, and some of that stuff is I would miss that part of the game as a player to just, who am I going to argue with? That's, it's like, am I going to argue with a robot? I guess it's not fun. Just that's part of the human element that you're taking away something that's been around forever. And like I said, they do, to me, they should police them a little better than they do. Most of them, don't get me wrong, when I was a player, I thought for the most part, 99.9% of them really took their job to heart, and they all do, but they really were like we were. We expected perfection, and we didn't want to miss calls. And other, at times, some of them, as a manager in the minor leagues, it's like they didn't have that same sense of pride, and they didn't care. They just, if you show somebody up or whatever it is, they want to really get you. But that's part of the game. It's the whole respect thing going back and forth. I couldn't fathom seeing a robot call balls and strikes. I just don't think it's part of the game.
Doug,
Yeah.
What about, in tennis, for example? I don't know if you watch tennis.
Oh yeah.
But they have the umpire in the chair, okay, and you can challenge serves going in and out or a ball being in and out. I think they get 6 challenges. Why can't they do something like that with strikes? And that would kind of have a certain amount that you're allowed to use, and if it's one an inning, let's say it's just like one an inning or something like that, or you can only challenge a third strike call, something along those lines. Wouldn't that negate all this crying about the umpiring all the time?
Yes, but what's Major League Baseball's biggest thing they've changed?
Time of games.
Yeah, they want
the game.
Okay, but is it that important that it doesn't affect? I mean,
I don't care. I played it. I didn't care about how much time it took. Yeah, there were days in April when it was freezing outside that I didn't want to be out there and it was cold. But like at the same token, I wanted it done right. Like this is. And I get what you're saying, and I'd be all for that. I've said it all the time. Like, what makes this challengeable and this not? That part of the game is still just as important as something else. So if you're going to challenge that, you should be able to challenge whatever, X, Y, Z. But at the same token, they're never going to do it because then you're going to go to the monitor and go to the umpire, whatever, the robot back there, and be like, beep. Like, okay, well, now what's? It's just going to be like you can't have it both ways. You can't have a challenged with a strike 3 and then you're complaining about too much time in between because the games take too long. So I don't know. I agree. I'm all for the challenges, and I think that's wonderful. But I think it's also about just because you've been around a long time, that doesn't mean, for example, I've had a lot of young umpires that are really good because they haven't had experience. They don't give it a chance to do whatever it is, the post.
Yeah, and another thing, I mean, like, I'm a golf fan. I watch golf. I watched the PGA Championship yesterday. Like, it's golf. It's a little bit nichey. Like, either you like it or you don't. Like, how many games, how many more fans do you think are watching this year? Like, did baseball adopt any new fans because the games are 15 minutes shorter? My answer is no.
I
Just
don't
like
think
me
so.
with golf. I mean, I like golf. I'm going to watch it. I'm going to play it. But if you don't like it, you don't have to watch it and you don't have to play it. It's not on the PGA Tour to go change golf that's been around since whenever, 150 years, maybe even longer than that, to get some other person that doesn't like golf to like golf.
I've always said this. It's like baseball, more than anything else, every sport has their purists, right? Have like their diehard fans. Well, if you're a purist and you really like baseball, you don't care how long the game is. You don't. I mean, for the most part, you just enjoy, because you're not watching the game. You're watching the games inside the game, right? The technical stuff that you really, your true baseball fans you're not gaining any. They would come out regardless. If we were playing in, underwear and socks, they would watch because they're baseball fans. It doesn't matter what changes you make to the game, in my opinion, and to purist baseball fans, all you're doing is really making the fans you really supposed to be supporting and making it right for you, making it harder for them to stay on and watch. So, I mean, I get it. I trust me. I played a sport that I. Yeah. So, I mean, I don't know. It's a debate that you'll go on and on about. That I just don't think it's. I don't think you're gaining that much fan base for changing all these rules.
Brian Daly, he loves the pitch clock personally. There needs to be exceptions to let fans show players appreciation when they come back for the first time. Apparently, you can petition the league and say that we got this guy coming back, and it's going to take a while, and that's how they set that up. Apparently, there's a process for that now.
I mean, I'm not 100% opposed to the pitch clock, but there's got to be some sense of we're electronically sending the signs in, and that what if that gets messed up, and then there's in a playoff game, and it's going to come down to something, and it's like I get, trust me, the whole catcher going to the mound every 2 pitches, that's annoying. but like lack of a better term, I think I speak for every aspect of life going on right now. There has to be common sense somewhere, has to rule somewhere. And it just seems like everything that's involved in the world right now, common sense just gets thrown out the window. And that's, to me, is where, there's got to be some kind of common sense factor in all of this.
Do you think, like, we talked about basketball a little bit at the top of the show, a little bit backstage.
Mm-hmm.
Now, regular season basketball and playoff basketball is officiated different.
Way different.
Do you think that, the regular season, we have maybe some of these rules that are getting hammered in, letter of the law, maybe like in the postseason, the pitch clock was at 6. We're going to let it slide because it's the playoffs.
We'll see. I mean, I don't think baseball's officiated differently. I think it's obviously the umpires are more in tune, just like everything else in October, because it's that much more important. But you can't tell me that, every other sport, you can't tell me an NHL playoff game is completely different than a regular season game.
Oh, yeah.
Like, it's completely different. NBA.
They swallow the whistle in
Oh,
the third
yeah.
period.
Correct.
They
don't want to be the one that causes the extra man advantage. So it's like, unless you commit a felony, like you're not getting a penalty call in the third period.
And I don't disagree with it. And I kind of like the fact that, for the most part, unless it is you are affecting a scoring opportunity, don't hit me with the ticky tack stuff that can change who the better team is, because you have to play by the letter of the law.
Correct.
Like if somebody swatted the puck in their own end, okay, and may have closed their hand on the puck on their own end, but there's nobody else around, you don't have to call a penalty.
Correct.
There's certain stuff, that are meaningless to the game that they'll call, and the playoffs they won't.
That's where common sense kicks in. It's like they don't want. I just feel like NHL guys don't want to be, and most officials. You ask good umpires, officials, they don't want to be. They don't want to make. It's like a last second of a basketball game. Like unless blood is drawn, they're probably not going to call a foul because they don't want to They don't want to affect it. If you ask them all, they don't want to affect the outcome of a game by one whistle or one call. And I get that. And that's the personal side of this sport that, trust me. I wish I had the patience of an NBA referee, because like every time they blow the whistle, some big dude is crying to their face about how they flopped and they didn't fall this and this. And I'm like those guys have the patience of a saint, because I'd lose my mind if I had someone, every time I blew the whistle, someone had a problem with what I just did. I'm like, go away.
How many technicals would you be calling?
Oh my gosh. There'd be 2 guys on each bench by the end of the game. It'd be a 2-on-2 basketball game by the end by the fourth quarter.
For sure.
Do you get in? I mean, I don't really remember you being the guy that got thrown out or argued with umpires during his career a lot.
Well, I did, but that's the glory of playing first base, because you get to talk to them 9 innings the night before they go behind the plate. And I mean, I would simply ask, if you do it, because back in the, when I hate to say this, I don't want to sound old, but I hate that term, back in the day, or back in my era. But when I was a player, you were told that you could say the nicest thing to them. If you turned your head to them, you could say the nicest thing ever, and they throw you out because you look like you're showing them up. But if you kept your head down, they would give you leeway to say something. So, for example, I would always ask, "Hey, is that as far out as it goes? Is that the bottom of the zone, at the top of the zone?" Or I would say something like, in the minor leagues, I use this line all the time: "If that's a strike, you and me aren't getting out of this league." And if I got to the big leagues, I would always say, "If that's a strike, you and me aren't going to be in this league very long." And just to say that to them, to kind of see the reaction I would get. But I definitely got thrown out as a manager. I got thrown out a lot.
Yeah, I mean, you can't help it.
But
you're a manager, it's different.
And as a player, I got ejected quite a few. I mean, I won't say quite a few times, but I just felt like, I got in good with the veteran guys. The newer guys it took a while, but the veteran guys, when I was a young player, if you just treat them with respect, and some of them I'm really good friends with on Facebook, and we still talk, and I get a kick out of it because some of them I joke with them, and you didn't talk to me the whole time I was out there. Now you want to be my friend on Facebook. You don't see me? Is that what it is? But no, I mean, you have an utmost respect for what they do. And, we had some, me and Doug Eddings would talk Miami Dolphin football for, 9 straight innings, and then get behind the plate the next day and he'd bang me on a bad call and be like, are you sure you're not a Patriots fan? Because that Dolphins fans don't do that to each other. We have to stick together. That's crap. But I mean, just being able to talk to him, and we talked all kinds of stuff, and that's what made the game fun. The relationships you'd make.
Brian Wilson agrees with the poll. Phillies are going to go to the playoffs, but they need to start winning some games, stringing together some wins. How do you look at the
series?
Is that how you look at it as a player?
Yeah, correct. You just want to win series.
2 out of 3, 2 out of 3, 3 out of 4, correct. 2 out of 4, and then all of a sudden you're 12 games over 500.
Yep, that's the whole goal. Just try to win every series you play, and that's obviously sometimes it's harder to do than say, but that's your goal. If you're a good team, if you're any team, you're just trying to win. That's your first goal. Win every series. Win every series, you'll end up where you want to be at the end of the year.
Then you'll be 108 and 54.
Sometimes
it's pretty good.
Sometimes,
yeah. Your Red Sox did that year. You were there.
Well, we weren't very good till August, and then August we went on. We caught fire, and it's all about baseball's just like every other sport. It's a matter of who gets hot when, and the record means really nothing once you get in the playoffs because the home road thing, it doesn't really matter. I got that discussion with guys with the Heat Celtics game. I was like, players at that level really don't care where they're playing. Like fans. Noise doesn't really bother them. Like you have guys that cherish it on the road to get booed, and you have guys that cherish being cheered at home. Very rarely do they like both. So, you have guys that play well on the road, you have guys that play well at home, but at the end of the day, like some guys, like I loved winning on the road. I thought that was the best part of my job. Obviously I loved playing at home too, but like I would rather win a big game on the road. It just meant more.
Because everybody's cheering is against you, so it brings out your competitive.
Beautiful.
Yeah. I can see
awesome.
that. I can see that.
It's the best part of the job.
Yeah, I can understand that. Do you think the home team sometimes? I think this happened a lot in hockey this year. Do you think the home teams just get too nervous at home because the fans jump on them?
It depends
and that
on
happens
where you
in
play.
Baseball too.
It depends on where you play. Like I think like when Miami, the Heat won 2 games in Boston. I'm like, and like the Celtics are whatever 4-4 at home. I'm like, yeah, it's a tough place to play. Like we always said this as an opponent in the Yankees. Like you win the first 3 innings, you turn 55,000 people against the home team. We've got them right where we want them, and that's pretty much, that's what the way. Because once they get rolling, fans they're going to start roaring, and the upper deck's going to shake, but you got to enjoy that. You got to embrace that part of it. But you can turn a home team's crowd against the home team, and I think that's why I think Boston, the Celtics, aren't very good at home because they love their Celtics, but they have an expectation level, and if you're not meeting it, they're going to let you know. And they don't. I
think the whole East Coast corridor between Boston, New York, and Philly. Right, that particular, and even Washington too. I think we're all pretty brutal.
Oh, for sure. But I always say this:
we're more brutal than they are everywhere else. I think that these 4 areas.
Yankee fans will boo you, but the second you do something well, all is forgiven. At least from my perspective.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
But like Mets fans take longer to boo you, but once they boo you, it's really hard to turn them back on your side. Boston was the same way. They were longer. It took longer for them to boo you, but once you did something that they didn't like, I remember like Byung Kim was the sidearm reliever from Arizona.
Yeah.
The second that guy came out of the dugout to go to the bullpen, like the first time I thought someone like rushed the field or I was like, okay, did someone just steal Larry Bird? Because like what's going on? And they hate him. I'm like, I didn't know the backstory. I had no idea. And I was just like, they boo that dude.
All right, let's hear from our friends at Philly Sports Trips. Philly Sports Trips, the premier Philadelphia travel agency packages. Trip to LA, Seattle. What is it? LA, Seattle, New England. Bus trip
Kansas
to New
City, I
York.
think.
Bus trip to Kansas City. Yes. So here's a word from.
Hey, Birds fans, the NFL schedule has arrived and Philly Sports Trips has all the details now. Visit the site phillysportstrips.com. This is sure to be an epic season. Be sure to go there now to make sure that you don't get shut out. Join us in Tampa, LA, Seattle, or when we get revenge in Kansas City. Don't want to fly? No problem. Gather up your crew and hop aboard one of our signature boisterous bus trips to DC or New York. Sign up now and make sure to mention A2D. Don't miss out on the best Philly fan experience anywhere. Philly Sports Trip customers always stay at the best hotels and meet NFL legends. Book today.
There they are, Philly Sports Trips, the Philadelphia 5-for-5 sports travel company, premium travel and tailgating experience for the passionate Philadelphia sports fans. Go to Philadelphia Sports Trip, phillysportstrips.com. Our friend Vince over there hooks it up. Tell him A2D Radio sent you. A lot of great trips on that. Kansas City, Seattle, LA.
Beautiful cities.
Definitely some good ones there. Have you you're a big Dolphins fan?
Yeah, I was going to throw that in there real quick. I'm sorry I missed last week. Are you guys like gung-ho fired up about the draft?
The draft? No, was last week my freak out? Last week was my 2-hour freak out on the Sixers because they suck. The draft was great. I mean, with Jalen Carter, Nolan Smith, the Eagles are loaded.
It's
crazy.
You
guys. I mean, you the Dolphins. I do think Miami's a good team. We actually play you guys in Philly on a Sunday night football game. I think you guys probably play the Giants too.
Yeah, but it just figures we're finally good in the first time in 20 years, and everybody in the division decided to get better. It's like we can't even. They don't even give us a year where we're like, okay, cool, But like I said, you guys are like Georgia North. It's crazy. Your defense, like you go to the Super Bowl and should have won it, and you pick up the two best players in the draft. Defensively.
They were really good last year.
They're going to be even better. Those two dudes they got are monsters. Like it's going to be scary.
Yeah, and your Dolphins, they're over there in the AFC with all those good quarterbacks. NFC, it's really the Eagles and then a drop off. Obviously, we'll see what happens. Especially the NFL, is super unpredictable. But I mean, with the conference, like it's almost like, can we play our second stringers and make a wild card in the NFC?
Probably.
Might be able to.
It's scary. We might go 9-8 and have the best team we've had here since Marino was here. And that's the reality of it. We got
that division.
We got Kansas City.
AFC East is brutal too.
That's what I mean. We're finally good, and like for 20 years it was just the Patriots, and that was it. And now it's like, oh wow, well, now we got Aaron Rodgers.
Buffalo,
and it's
you got
crazy.
Buffalo, and the Jets are a lot better now, and the Patriots still have a really good defense, and we'll see about their offense. But it's possible you won't have a team under 500 in that division.
Right. We have a quarterback that is made out of paper mache. So if he makes it through 3 weeks without getting hurt, we may have a shot.
He is good though, and you have the weapons for him.
That's a whole other show. Don't get me started.
What on the Dolphins' weapons?
No, Herbert would look way better in a Dolphins uniform than the one we have there.
Yeah.
Yes.
Oh, get it. Herbert. Okay, I get it.
I'm going to get crucified for that because everybody thinks I'm a Tua hater. I'm not a Tua hater. I just think we took a guy that was injury prone in college early in the draft.
Well, that's what I always say about especially the pitchers. We got this pitcher, Andrew Painter, in the minors. Let me ask you about that because you've been in the minors. You got the 18U team. You've been a manager. So Andrew Painter, he's the Major League Baseball top prospect, top pitching prospect for the Phillies. Might have gotten the fifth starter. Maybe they should have pushed it back. But this kid is a thrower. He doesn't know how to pitch. He's 19 years old. He goes to spring training. He's trying to impress all the veterans. He's trying to impress all the executives and the coaches. Goes out there. Throws a million miles an hour for his first in February, throwing 100 miles an hour. Gets himself hurt. And now the Phillies are down a starter.
It happens.
It happens, but like, I guess, is my frustration justified? Because I don't think the Phillies did a very good job of protecting Andrew Painter from himself.
Well, you can only protect him so much. I mean, like, I get what you're saying. You could have, held him back, but like if his stuff warrants, and he's blown through the minor leagues, okay, what's wrong with that? But I get what you're saying. It's a double-edged sword because most organizations are like, why are we taking so long with this guy? The Twins were notorious. They killed us for like how long it took us to develop kids. And I'm like, the idea is we want to send them up and keep them up there. I don't want to be running the train back and forth to AAA. So until you actually taste it, you don't really know what you're going to get. And that's why I always say the $1 million question in pro ball is he ready? Well, I don't know. If I knew that, I wouldn't be working because I'd pick 6 numbers in the lotto and I'd be, on Greece somewhere on a yacht. But I do know he's mastered this level. I don't know when you add the third deck and the 50,000 people, how is he going to react? I don't know what's inside of him. I can tell you what I see, but I know he's dominated here. And there's only one more level to go, and that's the next one. So, you never know. And it's a learning experience. He's 19. He'll bounce back. He'll get, it's fine. But I always said this too. We had power arms when I was a manager in the Twin system, and they waited. Like he doesn't throw a slider enough. He had to throw a slider 38% of the time or 31% of the time. And it's like, he throws 100. Let's try it. Like, rush him.
Right.
Yeah, I can understand that.
Well, if you have a power arm that's a starter and like he can only throw 2 pitches, it's pretty easy just to make him
like until we see it with our own eyes, until they see failure. It's like you need a secondary pitch, you need a third pitch, you need a third pitch. Well, until they see that they don't need a third pitch, they don't want to change anything. So that's where development comes along, and you have to understand where. If you have a power arm and you know that in your eyes as an organization, mechanics might be off. He's a ticking time bomb. Well, let's try to get something out of him and you rush him. But to me, like Dave Dombrowski's a lot smarter than I am. And he has people in his organization that he trusts. And you know what? That can happen anywhere. It's like, my son tore his ACL. I'm like, well, you might walk out today and get hit by lightning. It's not probable, but it could happen. So, I can't wrap you in bubble wrap. You're going to have to figure out a way to push it and see what happens. And then they said at 19, everybody goes through that. And it's a shame that he got hurt, but at the same token, he'll be back and he'll be better than ever. Yeah, today's medical stuff is the medical teams they have on these teams now are absolutely phenomenal.
Rob, when do they expect him back?
I don't even know.
Like how severe was it? Like, what was it?
It was 6. He got hurt, and they shut him down for 6 weeks. I think he's been doing some long toss stuff. I mean,
elbow or shoulder?
Elbow.
Oh, elbow's nothing. They all have elbows. They all have elbow. I mean, you're going to have elbow problems eventually.
But the fact that it's no news is kind of good news. It's kind of the way I look at that stuff. So,
you have to understand too. Like, he's 19. Like, there's, shut them down for 6 weeks. And like as soon as they get hurt, it's like they all like, oh gosh, now they wrap him in bubble wrap. And then they make sure they come back and he's right and he's ready to go and all the other stuff. But I get what you're saying. Like, but if he's if he makes it and he's the 5th starter and he's 5-1 right now, you're not saying we should have rushed him. Well, I can't believe we rushed him because he's an important part of your rotation. So I get both sides of it, but like I said, if the kid's earned the right to get up there, throw him up there. The only way you're going to find out if you can survive in the big leagues is to pitch big league innings.
Trying to see if there's an update on him. I mean, yeah, he's just kind of thrown. He's on the 60-day DL.
Perfect.
I guess.
September 1st. There's your acquisition right there.
That would be
throw him in the pen.
Yeah,
get some innings late in the season, and then you make a decision whether you want that arm in October.
There you go.
Sounds like the Twins. I mean, obviously, you spent a lot of time with the Twins. They were pretty entrenched in the analytics of baseball and the development. Now,
I always say we were always last to the party. like we were always the trend after the trend already faded. Like, it was, and they got more into it as I was getting out of it when they let go of Terry Ryan and brought in Levine and Falvey. Our analytic department got better, but it wasn't up to par, up to speed with a lot of other places. We still had a lot of like with your own eyes, what you see with your own eyes, which helped me because I feel like analytics are important, but they're also you're stating the obvious of what my eyes already show me. So you need a little bit of both, but I look at the Angels in 2002. They brought up Francisco Rodriguez and I think Brandon Donnelly. The best thing they did was keep him in the minor leagues till September, and all of a sudden you couldn't get data on the guy, and all of a sudden you're looking at a guy with 2.3 strikeouts per inning, and you're like, who the hell is this guy? And then you only faced him one time in October.
UCL sprain, Joseph Orkowski, you're going to be out till August 1st. Brad, your Yankees, they DFA'd Aaron Hicks.
Could you come again?
Aaron Hicks, DFA'd.
Who? Oh, Aaron Hicks.
How happy are you right now?
Yeah.
Oh, I'm I can't. He's one guy, and I know I've been rather abusive with him on the internet, but I just can't take that guy.
No.
He plays the game like Bobby Abreu used to, and that's
but Bobby could hit.
Except the difference is Bobby Abreu could actually hit. And can't hit. He can't do anything anymore. And I think the game against Toronto, when he let that ball hit the wall, and it hit the base of the wall when he stopped near the warning track and just watched the ball hit the base of the wall, I think that was finally the last straw.
I had Aaron in the minor leagues when I was a manager, and he was different. I was shocked at I'm actually shocked at how well he actually did to get that contract. Talented to the roof, but mentally I was like, when I saw him go to the Yankees, I was like, that's not going to work. And he ended up having a couple good years, and they gave him $70 million. And I was just still like, okay, that train's never late. But trust me, he was amazing defender. Amazing.
He was.
Power to the point where it got him in trouble. I always feel like Aaron could have been a really good hitter if he didn't have as much power as he did. He was
a good fielder until last year. I don't know what happened to him last year, but you could put up with the 240 batting average because he got a lot of walks.
Mm-hmm.
And he was your analytical guy. He got a lot of walks, but he didn't strike out that much, and he hit a lot of home runs. And when he got on base, he could steal. And he had that great arm. But all of a sudden, last year, he couldn't catch the ball. He was every time he got near a wall, he'd stop and let the ball fall in. I mean, he was always doing stuff like that. And then last year he started striking out all the time. And in New York, that can't happen, especially when you're not when you're trying to win a World Series, not when you're always on TV and everybody's watching. And then he started the same thing this year, and it's kind of and the other aspect to him was he was always on the injured list at least 2 times a year.
Right.
And it's he just like Giancarlo Stanton does the same thing, except Giancarlo Stanton, when he's playing, hits 30 home runs. So you can he's easier to forgive. Plus he always kills the Red Sox, so that
helps.
Yeah, every time you look down when they're playing the Red Sox, he's hitting a home run or he's putting the ball, he's making big dents in the Fenway Park wall. Okay, so we always forget the stupidity that he does. But Aaron Hicks doesn't get that leniency because he never did that.
But he doesn't have a track record. That's like I was shocked how many years you did out of him in New York. And I'm reading this Joseph. Pardon me if I messed up the last name up.
Yeah, he listens a lot.
Okay.
Yeah.
He's right. Bobby was 30 homers, 20 steals, 100 walks. And I think I take that on my squad. I play with Bobby, and he was arguably one of the best hitters I ever played with. And it was really fun to watch.
But Bobby Abreu could get away with it because because he was so good and he could hit. And when he was with the Yankees, he could hit too. And he he did shy away from the wall. He did do that, but you were okay with it because you know what? The night when he got up at the bottom of the inning, he'd end up hitting a ball over that wall, or he'd hit a ball off that wall. Yeah,
but he also that's the thing. You go back to what we talked about earlier about Aaron. Why is Aaron Judge stealing third? Bobby knew that.
I mean, a lot of the criticism of Bobby Abreu in Philadelphia was they were just never good when he was the best player on the team.
Well, they would get mad at him because you know what? Because if there was a runner on third and 2 outs, he would take the walk instead of swinging at a bad pitch and trying to drive in the run.
That's fine. And then
I don't understand
he would never
why.
hit leadoff.
Yeah,
he would never hit leadoff too. They would just not have a leadoff. It was like it's when Doug was on the Twins and they were doing good. And the Phillies, they had Boa as their manager, and they were neck and neck every year with the Marlins, and they would never beat the Marlins. The Marlins would get in, and the Marlins would make a run and do what the Marlins do. Abreu that's the criticism. I mean, his stats were his stats. Borderline Hall of Famer. I'm pretty picky on the Hall of Fame. You guys know that. Brad knows that at least. I mean, if we have to debate it, then you're not a Hall of Famer. That's how exclusive I think Hall of Fame should be. But yeah, a lot of the criticism for Bobby Abreu was the team was never really got over the hump with him as the best player on the team.
I think he was always good at being a part of the lineup, not the guy. And I don't mean that in a bad way. Bobby did really.
I would always.
I like Bobby.
Want him to hit lead.
I like Bobby with the Yankees. I thought he played real well with the Yankees, and nobody ever complained about him at all.
Where did he hit in the lineup when he was on the Yankees?
The one thing I'll say about Bobby was he went to the post every night. He played 162, and you knew exactly where he was hitting. And like that comment says best ability is availability, and that's my argument with Tua. That's my friends people on Facebook blow me up, but I'm like, it's not about whether I think he's good or not. Like he kills you because he hasn't played 17 games. We can't have this Super Bowl team if our quarterback gets hurt. Sometimes you're just being able to go out there, your presence alone with Bobby in the lineup, your lineup works with your 3-hole in there, wherever Bobby hit, and he hit third for us with the Yankees. Like our lineup was set when Bobby played, and we knew that we're not going to lose Bobby running into a wall. Like we're not paying you to go crash into and make a catch. We're playing you to get on base, so every time Alex hits, he's got at least one guy on base.
Yeah, I think he batted seventh when he was with the Yankees, but the Yankees back then had a loaded lineup. I mean, you had Jeter, and guys like Jeter at the top of the lineup. And he basically batted seventh, and with batting seventh is an RBI spot for them. That's back then. That was an RBI spot for them.
Mm-hmm.
Because he had guys on. He always had guys on base. You had like Tino was ahead of him. Posada was ahead of him. And he would just sit there in the 7-hole, and the pitcher would be like, "Oh, I finally got through all those guys." But then all of a sudden, Bobby Abreu walks up to the plate, and you're like, "Oh man, this guy is laying off pitches 2 inches outside the strike zone, and now I have to really work to get this guy out." And then you put one in there, and he's whacking the hell out of it, and he was really good there.
Bobby was whether it was 3-0 or 0-2, it went to 3-2 every time.
Yep. He was we used to call him the anti Alfonso Soriano.
Oh yeah.
Because we always said that when Soriano was up, just make the count 1 and 2. So you're not wasting our time, and then we can start, and then you don't have to worry about it. And with Abreu, you're right. It was 3 and 2. We think that with Judge too. Just let the count be 3 and 2 because whether you like it or not, even if the pitcher gets ahead of him 0 and 2 or 1 and 2, it's going to be 3 and 2 because they're not going to just challenge him. They're going to try to get him to strike out, which he will, because that's just part of his game.
Makes him dangerous too, though.
Oh yeah, because if you throw it over the plate, you're
going to get walloped.
Yeah.
Remember he won that home run derby? I think it was in Detroit Stadium. I guess it was in America. He had like 25 home runs in the round.
Mm-hmm.
And he went in that same – for Bobby Abreu, it was a slump.
Everybody was shocked too. Like Bobby's pop was up there with anybody I played with. It was he could do it at will. And he's like, but I was like, see, you all thought we were crazy when we were telling him Bobby's got pop, and he just won the home run derby.
Yeah. So we got 2 on, 1 out. Trey Turner's up the bat. We talked about Castellanos a little bit in the World Series last year, and now he's doing good. How hard is it? I mean, you played for a couple different teams. You moved around some.
Mm-hmm.
Like, what's it like? How long does it get comfortable with that new team?
Sometimes it's a couple of years. Sometimes it's immediately. Sometimes it's a week. Sometimes it's 2 weeks. And it's hard to put a finger on it. I mean, like, Nick is a very confident person, and he's kind of like an odd kind of personality. But he can flat out hit. And like, almost watching him last year was like, if you would have taken his years in Detroit and put it in Philly, you'd be talking about borderline Hall of Fame numbers. Because, I mean, he drives balls to right center field with the best of them, like almost like Cabrera-esque. And
I remember when he was on Detroit.
It was impressive. It was
he was
epic.
A real good hitter.
And he still is.
Davis. Not JD Davis. I'm sorry, him and JD Martinez, when they were both on Detroit, it was like watching the two of them were like almost exactly the same.
Correct. And I think Nick got comfortable, but like Nick also, like, even in the World Series, like, he didn't have a great year, but his at bats got better when the game kind of got on the line. He always has good at bats, and he doesn't change who he is. And I think with that ballpark, he's gonna hit a lot of home runs to right center field for you guys. And I loved having him. I loved working with him because he was like, he is who he is, and he does things, and it doesn't look like it should work, and it does. And it's flat. He drives balls to right center. He stays on balls. He doesn't pull. The only thing he pulls is off speed pitches for the most part, and he's a good professional hitter.
Well, Turner just got a base hit to right field to make it 4-3.
Castellanos almost tied the game on a pull job from a breaking ball, just fouled down the third baseline.
And also the right field in Philly's going to help Nick too, because it's not that deep.
What do you think about lineup continuity? Seems like huge. So you think it's big, like whatever, like you're Doug Mientkiewicz, you're playing first base, you're hitting third, you're hitting fourth. That helps you as a big leaguer.
Oh yeah, it's a comfort. I mean, those guys are different now. They're established, but like when you're a young player, or even in a lineup like that, you just know. You don't have to look. Like, I know I'm hitting second, or I know I'm hitting seventh, or I know I'm hitting eighth, whatever it is. You just know. You don't have to look every day and be like, okay, what am I hitting today? And you start getting to you know who's in front of you, you know who's behind you. It's just you pass the baton. There's definitely something to lineup construction and what piece might work. It doesn't always look right to the naked eye, but there's a reason why guys are fitting to where they fit. And I think that was, I think you're still trying to figure it out. It's like you have Bryce, right? Well, you build around that. Where is Trey fit in? Is he a leadoff guy? Do you hit him in front of him? Do you hit him behind him? What do you do? So like that's what the luxury of where, in my opinion, Philly's lineup is. You have movable parts.
Phillies got them loaded 2 out, so they walked Harper.
Yeah, that was the right move.
Bottom 7, so you walk Harper to get the JT. 2 outs. Doug, do you think Bryce Harper can play first base, like the rumors are saying, once he can throw?
I don't think Bryce Harper can not do anything on the field.
Right.
I think he could catch if you really wanted him to.
Didn't he get drafted? I think he got drafted as a catcher. No.
But I mean, like, I just use it hypothetically. I don't think if he can play right and he can, he can play first. Like I said,
you think that's smart for the Phillies to put him at first?
I don't see why not. I mean, it's a matter of what he wants to. It's like, to me, it's you give him that year, whatever, play him at first this year, let his arm really fully heal, and then come next year. I will say this: lineup flexibility means a lot. Extra DH, moving guys, having guys be able to play multiple positions helps. In case a guy goes down, your depth is challenged. Having them play first, you can still go out and play right, wherever it is. So there's nothing on the field I don't think that kid can't do.
Yeah, he's an excellent athlete. I think a lot of these guys who are real good athletes can play almost anywhere.
For sure.
You
And
touched on
JD just flied out to center field, so that's the end of the 7th.
Yeah, that was my fist on the table moment there during Doug's rant.
Understood. My team has the night off tonight, so I'm kind of just, I'm not.
It's just
I'm not thrilled about sweeping the Reds. I would think that.
I would hope so.
No, I mean, if they can't sweep the Reds, I would really think that there's a
Something
major
wrong.
problem. Yeah,
it just sucks. It just sucks. Like they're right there, and they did on Saturday. I mean, they put up a 12 spot on the Cubs, and now they're. I mean, the Arizona's good, so I don't know. We'll have to see. You touched on this earlier. Why did the Marlins struggle after their 2 World Series runs? What went wrong? I mean, you kind of talked about.
They traded them because of money, and they got. I remember I was 97 when they won. They traded all the big league guys, and I was in Double-A at the time, A-ball, Double-A, Double-A, and I was looking around, going, all the guys that every great player that was in the Eastern League in Double-A at the time, the Marlins got back. And I was going, they don't have enough spots for all these dudes. Like, they're going to be really good soon because they took the 2 best players from every Double-A team. Right. In Double-A, and it's like there's not enough room on the 40-man for all these guys to be there. And it was a direct correlation to their 2003 run.
All right, let's talk some basketball. Let's move on to our wild card segment. Wild card segment brought to you by Specialized Physical Therapy. Dr. Paul Vidal, he's our doc, make him yours too. 2 convenient locations in Burlington and Cherry Hill. Like I said, he's our doc, make him yours too. Dr. Paul Vidal at Specialized Physical Therapy. So, 2-3-0 conference finals. Obviously, I don't think this is the script, as they say, for the NBA and what they wanted, a Denver-Miami Heat final.
But it certainly looks like worst nightmare.
That's the worst nightmare. That's like the Minnesota Twins versus the Oakland A's in the first round of the playoffs. Like the Fox's worst nightmare is Denver versus Miami in the finals. Yeah. Or TBS, whoever has the basketball.
Denver's really good though. They're going to play a couple minutes here on against the Lakers.
Well, they're on now. It's 25-22 Lakers in the first quarter.
I mean, they're very good. It's not the point. It's just the cities. Like the NBA wants LA, Boston, for sure.
But yeah, I mean, I know you big Heat fan. I mean, Celtics kind of laid an egg yesterday, kind of didn't show up. And I do want to talk to you about the Sixers because
go ahead.
Minnesota, you were really good for what was it, 4 or 5 years, but you didn't win the World Series, and you had good players, and the Sixers have good players. So like, I don't know, like what is a team like the Sixers who just consistently comes up short all the time? Where do they go from here?
I don't think Joel Embiid is a champion. I don't think he won an NBA title with Joel Embiid. I just don't see how you can do that. They've had the best. To me, they've had the best team in the East for what, 2-3 years now.
They've been right there.
Harden. Yeah. There's always some excuse, and it's like it just doesn't seem like, even like when he said after the playoffs, we can't do it by ourselves.
Yeah, the 2 guys.
Right. He didn't really. Did I miss something? Did I miss your 40-20, like your 40-point, 28 rebound, 11 block night? Maybe I'm missing. I'm not a fan of his.
So the two
I respect the fact that he's good, but I just don't see how, like, I suppose, like, as a Heat fan, I'm like, I would welcome. I was pulling for the 76ers in the Celtics series because I was like, that's a layup for us.
The Heat over the Sixers, you mean?
Yes, it's a layup.
Well, yeah, and then they just make bad decision after bad decision. Like you choose Ben Simmons over Jimmy Butler.
Correct.
And then you're boxed into paying Tobias Harris a bunch of money because you have to have a 3rd, 4th guy. And Maxey, he's pretty good, but I mean, I don't think he's going to carry you to a championship unless he really, really improves.
It's hard to say that about the guy that won the NBA MVP. It's like, who am I? But I don't get that vibe from him. Like, he's just like, there's always excuses or there's always something. It's like, Oh my! It just I don't know. That quote rubbed me the wrong way, and I know what he meant by it, but at the same token, like that just rubbed me the wrong way.
He's trying to blame everybody else for the fact that
like
he didn't perform. I mean,
and then he goes out of his way to stick up for James Harden, he's notorious for doing this kinds of stuff in big spots. And, look, if you're Jason Tatum, if the Sixers won that Game 7 and Jason Tatum goes up and drops 51 and he wants to go in the press conference and talk to the newspaper and say, hey, I kind of need a little help. Okay, you dropped 51 and you're pissed off you lost and then you thought your teammate should have played better. But, 15 points for Joel Embiid in Game 7,
right?
That's half of what he averaged. That's just you can't really just be quiet, go home, and
timing is everything. Just 15 points for you, you should get that in a quarter. If you're taking over a game, and you just drop that on as your post game comment, I'm not. Let's not selling that. I'm not buying that.
3 for 11.
3 for 11. Right. He had 9
and
points.
I will say this:
assists.
As a Heat fan, I was on the fence about Jimmy Butler. I didn't realize he was the Bulls, the 76ers, he's just bouncing around. And I guess you just, in Pat Riley, we trust. I mean, whenever he brings someone into this culture, they're all in. And I've become more of a basketball fan because of Jimmy Butler. I love everything he does. I watch his interviews. I look at stuff online. I can't get enough of them because they just even in the bubble, back when they went to the finals, I was like, this guy just lays it on the line. When your superstars do the dirty work and will rebound and hustle and get back on defense and make a good pass, that stuff is infectious. And I just don't see that from the 76ers. I don't see that from anybody. James Harden's not going to dive for a loose ball. Embiid's not going to I just don't see that. They just dull. It's just they lack energy for some reason. I just feel when watching them play, it's like watching the Celtics last night. It was if you guys just don't want to play, just throw the towel in and go home because this is embarrassing. You're professionals. They look they just look completely lost. The Celtics last night looked completely the Heat ripped their heart out in the first quarter. And it was we played the best quarter we could possibly play in the first quarter and we're still losing. We're done. It was they threw in the towel, like a Rocky movie.
Well, I don't think their coach is all that great, Joe Mazzulla.
I don't think the guy they had last year was that good either. But he's by default at that moment. But he's lost. Let's get that point blank. He's completely over his skis. He looks on the sidelines of those games. He looks completely overmatched. He looks like he doesn't belong there. And even his post game, he's snippet with his post game interviews. He's staring at the stat sheet. It's he says something. You're dude, just come out and say I have no control. The inmates run the asylum. Just come out and say it. You might be a great coach, but you literally don't do anything. Al Horford was in the coach's chair the other night during a timeout. What are you doing? You can't get the guys to play in Game 3 of the Eastern Conference Finals. You don't need a coach for that. I'm sorry. Well, that's where it goes back to leadership.
He didn't call timeout in Game 5 when or was it Game 4, Rob? The game when
it was
the game
4
or
5.
It was the game in Philly when they.
I think it was 4. It was 4 because it was in Philly.
4.
It was in Philly.
Yeah, it's game 4. It's Game 4, and the Celtics both in regulation and in overtime had the ball with 14 seconds to go. And this guy's just play. And especially in the overtime, they're taking you take a 3-point shot when you're down by 1 point, trying to win the game. Why are you taking a 3? It's a 33% chance of you making it. Okay. I get it with the analytics over the course of a game, but if you're only down by 1 point, get into the lane and get a foul and get 2 foul shots.
Yeah. He's I like to save 2 times.
And then you can try to say we had the matchup we wanted. I'm well, you know what? That to me, that just screams, I don't know what I'm going to call, or I don't have anything to play. I don't have a play to draw up, so I'm just not going to call timeout. I don't want the responsibility.
Yeah, I'm not. I don't want to put my my cards on the table because I don't.
Right.
know
I don't know what I'm doing, so we're just going to let him play out. I just feel like the guys. And again, he's young, and I get it. This is their he was their third choice already after Brad Stevenson left. He became the front office guy. So, like, there's still, like, the guy last year, I thought they had a toughness last year that they obviously completely lack. The guy last year, his name's slipping my mind right now, but
Ume Adoku.
Right. Like, I just thought they had a toughness last year that they haven't had before. And they had it was more prevalent last year. And then this year was like, wait, this isn't anywhere near the same team that we played last year. Like it doesn't look anywhere close to the toughness stuff that we're talking about. Like, and then they try to fire. Like, you're gonna poke the bear. You're really gonna poke Jimmy Butler after he's scored how many points in a row. Like, you didn't play game one. Like, pump the brakes. Like, it's just like they're trying stuff that it's like they're reaching. And it looked like last night they've tried to pull every stop out they could, and just like they're getting steamrolled. But then again, it's the playoffs, and we all know from one stolen base how history can be changed. So you never know.
Here we go.
But you never know. You get one. I know.
Oh, I know exactly what you're talking about. Game 4. Yeah. Game
shocking
4
that no one in basketball has done it. It's actually shocking that no one in basketball has done it, in my opinion. I just can't fathom that out of all those games.
In sports, the last two teams that have been involved in 3-0 leads that were blown came out of Boston when the Red Sox beat the Yankees, and when the Flyers came back.
Flyers got it done against the Bruins.
Flyers beat the Bruins.
I love beating Boston. It's so great.
Oh, of course.
So great.
Yeah, well, you know.
So great. I was happy.
Nothing personal, Doug, but
I get it.
I'm a Yankee fan.
Sides. I'm okay with that. I've been on both sides.
Yeah, you understand. They never root for they would never root for us except at gunpoint, and same thing applies for us.
Even then, I don't think they would.
Doug, in 2004 with the Red Sox, was it like when Dave Roberts stole that base? Like, you were like, okay, like momentum shifted right there, or was it just one at a time?
I don't think that. And you're like, thank God, it's like he made it. But like, and then once Billy, after the fact, you can say yes. I mean, but we had the right guy up, and the right guy at second. Billy Miller was probably one of the very few guys on the team, left-handed hitters that could handle Mo, and he got a base up the middle, and the rest goes on. But we had still a couple of times later on in that series where balls were rolling. Tony Clark hit a ball on the line that if it rolls and falls back and doesn't go over the little short fence and right, we lose.
I remember that too.
Miguel Cairo scores standing up. I mean, it's like, so like that little ball rolls over the right field fence, and we live to play another inning, and we end up winning. So there's a lot of little things that happen. But people forget too that game one of that series, we were down 7-0, 8-0.
Yep.
And David just missed a 3-run homer to tie it in like the 8th off the top of the left center field wall. So like, it wasn't like you can call a bad break for a double off the wall, but like David hits that ball another foot, it's 8-8, and that whole series changes in game one.
The thing that I think turned that series around, though, honestly, was John Olerud getting hurt, because they didn't win another game after John Olerud got hurt.
That's very true.
And Tony Clark ended up at first base, because John Olerud was crushing the Red Sox in that series. He was having a heck of a series, and he was also really a good defensive first baseman as well.
Yep.
I mean, you were kind of in the same. You played the same kind of baseball John Olerud used to play.
Just was a little bit better. He was a lot better offensively. I will say this: like,
he had one year that it was great, but you guys were very much the same type of player. You were very hard to get at. Both of you guys were tough outs. You were both left-handed hitters, and you were both pains in the asses to try to get out.
John's swing was just effortless. It's super pretty.
I know. He didn't hit a lot of home runs, but you know what? He always seemed to hit them. When he hit them, they were always backbreakers against the Yankees. And then when the Yankees got him, he played really well. But he was always getting hurt. And after that, I think he strained his hamstring or something like that.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And then when he got hurt, Tony Clark came out there. Nothing against Tony Clark, but I know he did the best he could. But he's just not. He was not as good.
I'd say John Olerud did everything like super smooth. Like nothing was like hard or quick. It was just bat was through the zone, nice and smooth. It fielded balls like it just looked like if you can consider playing defense at first base poetry, like John Olerud was it. Like it was just.
You used to play the same way there.
I was more like diving and like John never dove. He just caught everything, got to everything, and just did it smoother. Like it just looked more effortless.
But he was really tall too.
He was taller than I. Yeah, he's way taller than I was.
That helps. You know, I mean, but I mean, as far as you guys being really good defensively at first, being 300 hitters a lot, and getting big hits. That's kind of what he did. He had the 1 year where I think he hit 375 and hit a lot of home runs for Toronto. But I think after that, I mean, for the most part, his career, you guys were very, very similar players.
Don't forget, he never played. I don't think he played in any of the minor leagues. He went straight to the big leagues.
That I didn't know.
It's pretty. Like
how'd that work?
He was that good. It was
they just drafted him and put him right in the big leagues.
I'm almost positive
crazy.
He went straight to the big leagues. I think he's like one of 2 or 3 guys. I think Xavier Nady did it too, but they sent Nady back. But he went straight to the big leagues. But I know John Olerud, I think he went straight to the big leagues, which is insanity because he was, like I said, he just. Anyway, I
don't see that.
No, nowhere close. And he played forever, and he just did everything. Like there's very few guys like defensively that I would watch. He was one. I think Martin Grace was like Keith Hernandez. Another one I would watch, like as growing up, I was like, dude, these guys like Gracie to me was like dying, obviously Mattingly. We used to go back and forth, but in the Yankee dugout and even in LA about who was better defensively, me or him, which was great. It was classic. But those guys, like I always say, being a left-handed first baseman is like cheating. That's just you guys just look cleaner than what us righties do. But I was fortunate to play against them.
The way that they could throw the ball, to second base on the double plays.
Mm-hmm.
On the run, they could. It was easier for them to, when they caught the ball in in the same motion, they could throw home. You didn't have to like turn around and have to, reverse your field to throw. I mean, it's an easier position when you're same thing with playing left field. When you're left field and you're left-handed, it's a lot easier. You got to help Ricky Henderson a lot too.
Is that right? If you're a lefty.
What's that? Go ahead.
I guess.
What's that?
If you're left-handed left fielder, that's easier.
It all depends. I always look at it this way: like you don't want a left-handed left fielder and a left-handed. You don't want a left-handed. Let me think about that. Now you're challenging my Polishness with this comment.
Yeah.
But I always felt like you don't want glove sides on the same side because they're dominant. And they're going to go in. Like there's always this is the stuff that keeps you up at night as a manager because you're thinking about like a left-handed. Okay, so if you have a left-handed left fielder, you don't want a right-handed left fielder.
You want a right-handed right fielder and a left-handed left fielder because you could reach your glove because you could reach your glove into the stands.
Correct.
Without having to go sideways, and you could also keep your eye on the field.
Correct.
But when you have to go across like that, it's harder.
It's harder to catch the ball.
That's why I thought Ricky Henderson was so good in left field because he had all that speed and he could cover the line with his glove and annoy the hell out of you with that snatch catch, but then he could run to the other side too. So if he was running towards center field, he could just grab the ball and flip it into second base, so they wouldn't be able to turn singles into doubles on him.
I remember the Twins. The Twins were the first team that when I became a coach and a manager. Actually, I'm in the Dodgers. We had that conversation one time at one of the meetings we had as a coaching staff. Was like, well, no, I don't want same glove side on the outfield. I was like, oh, I never like say that's something that you don't really think about, right? You don't think about, you don't want the same arm side, same glove side because they're going to attack the same. If they go after the same ball, they're going to run into each other. More apt for collisions. And I was like, I never thought about that. Like, just that's the type of stuff that, like,
I didn't think about that.
Some of the analytics that we're going over. I was like, man, that's makes things that make you go, Like you start to pay attention to it after a while. I'm like, that's okay. I mean, I see what they're saying, but I never really put too much thought into it when that happened. But it makes sense. But to me, if you can catch it, and if you have two good outfitters, it doesn't matter what glove arm they have where, and they're going to catch it.
Yeah, as long as they have a big arm.
Well, in today's game, you don't really need a big arm. Left field, no one hits singles.
It's true.
Yeah, right field it does. I think in right field it does matter because
for sure.
Stopping guys from first to third.
Of course, but the arms never really. I mean, you don't really have to throw anybody out on a homer.
No, that's true. Can you imagine Ichiro in his prime playing right field in Yankee Stadium though? With that
he'd throw guys out at first all the time. Yeah,
playing short. Yeah, he could play shallow in the outfield because if the ball went over his head, it'd probably be a home run. He
could probably throw somebody out at first from center. Like there's nothing he couldn't do.
Yeah, when he was in his prime, I mean, he would throw balls from the right field, from the corner in right field in the air to third base. And you'd be like, I remember when he first came up, he was doing that. And I was at a Yankee Seattle game. He did it and he threw out two guys. I'm like, what the hell? And he made it a station to station game with that arm.
You knew there was a few guys like that. There's a few. I'm trying to think of
Dwight Evans. He was another one.
He was before me, but like I said, yes, he was one. Like Raul Mondesi.
Yeah.
There was one more. Jose Guillen.
Yeah, O'Neill was another one. Jose Guillen. What team was he on? Was he on the Twins? Can't remember now.
Guillen. He was on the Dodgers.
He was in the Dodgers organization? Okay.
Jose Guillen, he played a lot.
Look at this. Somebody wants to fight LeBron James.
Yeah. Aaron Gordon's in his face.
I just became an Aaron Gordon fan.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, he's holding his arm. I mean, what's he supposed to do?
I think Aaron Gordon kind of was I think Aaron Gordon was in the wrong there. I think he kind of started that.
Yeah, but it doesn't matter because people like you and Doug who hate LeBron are always just going to blame LeBron.
I don't hate him. I just don't like him a lot.
I just don't like him flopping. Go out and play ball.
Say you flop. Just come out and say you flop. Just come out and say it. Don't try to hide it. Oh, we don't teach that. Oh, that's all you do.
Yeah.
It's legitimately all you do.
I mean, he's 6'8", like 270. Like,
right.
You know how hard you have to hit somebody for them to fall over?
Yeah, I mean, I could get
I
could get a 90-foot. I could get a 90-foot start and run into him, and I'd be the one that
you bounce backwards.
Yeah,
I'd
break every bone. I break every bone in my body.
Correct.
Yeah.
You want predictions? We got to get out of here. We got Sports Jeopardy coming up next on A2D Radio. I believe it's Tom Arnone versus Nate Moss tonight. I was on last week and I lost.
You didn't hold
tough questions.
I think Brian
no,
was
man.
on last week from the Hockey
Dude, they were
Hour.
hard. They were hard.
Well, what were they asking?
And they were like,
were they asking Philly sports questions or were they asking everything else?
There were a lot of 2 and 3 part answers.
That's not fair.
If that makes sense.
That's kind of
so I wasn't gonna. If it was a 4-part answer, I wasn't gonna buzz in because then if I buzz in and get it wrong, then I got minus points, and that's where I got myself in trouble until I realized that I was losing all these points because I'm getting these wrong answers. Final Jeopardy was interesting though. It was the which undrafted quarterback has the most touchdown passes of all time.
Oh, geez, I wouldn't know that.
I did not get it right.
Do you have any idea, Doug?
I'm thinking. I don't.
Well, I guess.
My guess would be. I would guess Joe Cap.
I guessed Tony Romo, and it was wrong. It wasn't Joe Cap. It was actually Warren Moon.
Warren Moon didn't go to. Oh, that's right. He went to the CFL.
CFL.
He went to the CFL or the USFL, and then found this home. So
Yeah, that's right.
Anyway, stay tuned for that. Sports Jeopardy coming up. Frank Vesby, Andy Ritter, and
that question's brutal.
Yeah, Kurt Warner. I think my opponent gets Kurt Warner, which
that's where I was leaning towards.
I forgot he wasn't drafted, but that wasn't the answer either. Anyway, Doug, a prediction for your Heat the rest of the way before we get out of here?
I think they close it out. They close it out tomorrow, and I think they got their hands full in Denver.
I don't think Denver closes it out tonight. I think they close it out. I think Denver closes it out at home.
They're at home. The Lakers are playing pretty well right now. But
the Lakers are looking good right now.
Doug will be back with us next week. Regular part of the program. Brad Ryer, Rob Brinkman. Thank you to everyone who liked, comment, and shared the show. Thank you to our great sponsors here. Until next month, stay tuned for Sports Jeopardy. Until next Monday, peace out, everybody.